November 11th, 1945, the University of Oslo. Behind locked doors and guarded corridors, a gathering took place that history would never record. Norway was only months into its fragile peace. German occupation had ended in May. The king had returned from exile. The scars of war were everywhere: bombed-out ports, ruined rail lines, homes left in ashes. Yet inside the university's lecture wing, another battle was being waged. Around a heavy oak table sat diplomats and scholars. Along the walls stood men in plain suits, their posture stiff, their hands never far from the pistols hidden beneath their coats. These were not academics. They were soldiers in disguise, veterans of a war only just concluded. The agenda was not diplomacy, nor science. It was survival. Reports had already begun to filter in. Men and women of learning, philologists, archaeologists, historians, who had handled even reproductions of the Codex's pages, were vanishing. Some disappeared without a trace. Others were found lifeless in their studies, their pens still resting in hand. Doctors spoke of heart failure. Always heart failure. To Christoph Dalen, the pattern was unmistakable. He had seen it before. It had claimed his lecturer, Helga Engberg. It had claimed Haugen and Anderson. It had claimed almost every member of the 1939 expedition that had brought the Codex into the world. Now, in the hushed chambers of the University of Oslo, Christoph Dalen told their story. He spoke of the Codex and of how it had come into his hands, of the voyage that had never reached Antarctica, of the wreck that had risen from the sea, and of the silver box, seamless, lidless, opening not with key or hinge, but at the simple, deliberate press of a human hand. He did not merely recount it. He showed them. Before the assembly, he placed the box, demonstrated its opening, revealed the daguerreotype within, and laid bare the Codex, its dark pages filled with sigils, diagrams, and warnings no scholar present could fully understand. Symbols that seemed to shift under the eye, illustrations of beings both nightmarish and divine, languages long dead, bound together in a book that should not have existed. The men who watched, statesmen who had negotiated with diplomats in New York, scholars who had hidden archives from the Nazi torch, sat frozen in silence, not with disbelief, but with a weight they could not yet name. Then Salman spoke. His voice carried with it the gravity of centuries of scholarship, and he said what many had feared to admit aloud. The Codex described an ancient presence, not myth, not legend, but something older, something that threaded itself through the world of men. And then, the revelation. The daguerreotype found within the silver box was no mere portrait. The Codex itself named the men it depicted. On the left, Khalid al-Nazir, a Saudi scholar, explorer, and historian. His name erased from record in the 19th century, his journeys forgotten by design. On the right, William Lachlan Cavell, a British admiral. Renowned in his day for voyages that spanned the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, only to be struck from the Royal Navy's registers after 1871. His disappearance explained away, his legacy dismantled. Between them stood a third figure, their mentor. His bearing was stately, his dress that of a man from the Middle East. His habits, his teachings, fragments of his words were described in the Codex with reverence. Yet his name was never once written. The omission deliberate, as though his very identity was a danger in itself. Together, these men had formed an alliance, an expedition not bound by nation nor empire but by conviction. With them traveled 14 others, officers, polymaths, linguists, cartographers, figures of distinction who had slipped into the margins of history. Their purpose was singular: to seek out the remnants of a civilization erased from the chronicles of man, a people whose influence was scattered across continents, hidden in myths and ruins, disguised in architectural echoes linking cultures thought unconnected. What they uncovered, what they sealed away, had crossed oceans and centuries, passed from their forgotten voyage in the 1800s into the hands of Haugen's expedition in 1939, and now into the bloodied aftermath of 1945,